Awesome. So, for those of you that tune in live or on the replay, I am here with former hockey player, pro hockey player Matt Kadolf. Did I pronounce that right, bro?
Yeah, it's Kadolf. Yeah, there's actually
Oh,
it's funny because most people never get it right on the first time, and it's funny. Jason Phillips, if you guys don't know who that is, he actually was one of those people who actually got it right the first time. But yeah,
boom.
used to play hockey. I'm still trying to, but I used to play I grew up in Canada, right? I'm out just outside Detroit in Michigan right now. But I grew up in Canada, grew up in Ontario. So obviously I was a hockey player growing up. What actually brought me to the US was hockey. A small college reached out to me and I came down for a visit, really liked the school. Came down here, I ended up meeting my wife. And long story short, I'm still here. And what kind of sucks really is I haven't been able to go home and see any of my family since December of 2019. So really unfortunate, but it is what it is for now. So hopefully I'm hoping to go back very, very shortly, at least for this Christmas, at least. Yeah.
Gotcha. That'd be cool, man. Hopefully everything works out. So thank you for joining me on this at the last minute, man. I know we've been talking for a while and I've been wanting to have you on for a while. So just thank you first and foremost for your time. Second, man, why don't we just open up with giving a little bit more in-depth detail of your history, your background, how you went from hockey player to husband, nutrition coach, coach of parents and kids, everything like that. So, man, just the floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to do these. Was a hockey player. Now I met my wife at school. We got married, so I ended up becoming a permanent resident here, right? So that's what kind of allowed me to stay in the country. And I was worked at another hockey training facility. Now, one of my former college teammates, he opened up his own, kind of asked me to come along and manage it. So now I do that. We're actually expanding out into another large facility. So how I got into nutrition coaching was, I've always had a knack for, getting my nutrition to at a higher level, right? I think that was one of the things that kind of always held me back because, every former athlete, and I'm sure there's some parents who are in this group who are former athletes, and they know this all too well, that they could really almost get away with eating whatever they wanted, right? Growing up. And most people actually can, just because we are so active growing up. Like we're in sports, we're just moving around, we're going out. We're always on our feet, right? And then as we get older, we kind of still maybe fall in that category of, yeah, we can still eat whatever we want, but then we don't move enough. And then we start to see the pounds come on, right? So that happens to almost every former athlete, right? That's why you see a lot of former professional athletes who are, overweight, right? So kind of almost happening to me in a sense. So I wanted to get my nutrition in check, and I really wanted to know the facts, right? You can always Google things everything you can find on Google, you can find online, you can find something to fit your narrative on social media, right? Everything is at our fingertips, but there's also a lot of bad information out there too. And I want to know the facts. So because I have tons of, I work with a lot of young hockey players and young athletes in general, I want to provide them with the correct information, give them, things that are actually true and going to help them, not just, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, why? I don't know, because I said so, right? I want to know why. So that's kind of why I got into nutrition coaching, because if I can help their parents, if I can coach their parents, because a lot of them, and we'll have this discussion about, putting yourself, on the back burner and putting your kids first, which, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. There has to be kind of this balance, right, between that. So I feel like if I can really get to the parents and coach them to, develop better nutritional habits and develop better fitness habits, and just really almost improve their lifestyle and get them to a point where they know the basics. They don't have to know as much as I do. They don't have to know as much as you do. They don't have to know everything, right? They just need to know enough, right? They need to understand enough to know, these are the kind of foods I should be eating. these are the kind of foods like maybe I shouldn't be eating all the time, even though you can still have them, right? And then in turn, they can pass that information along to their children. So it's kind of like a full circle thing, and that's what I'm really trying to do right now with my business. Even though I'm still fresh, I'm still starting out. Like I'm about 6 months in right now, but I would say most of my clientele is parents and older people in general. Like I don't really work with any young athletes or high performance athletes at the moment. It's mostly going to be aimed towards parents. And then with that new facility opening up, we're going to be actually inside of a hockey rink, and it has hundreds or thousands of people going in and out of there every single week. So that opportunity is just going to be amazing. For myself, obviously, as a business owner, but it's just going to be the kind of impact that I'm going to be able to have is just like I'm truly very excited for it. So that kind of gives you a little bit into who I am, what I've been doing, and what I'm going to be up to.
Yeah, so and more than anything, man, that just sounds like a fun time. Like what you're doing,
yes,
man, I'm kind of jealous. Like that's pretty cool to be able to be in a hockey arena, like and just do workouts with people, work with people that are passionate about hockey like you are. Like when I retired from professional wrestling, like I don't even know if we had this conversation. I was a former pro athlete as a professional wrestler, and I retired a couple years ago. And even then, like I dabbled into helping other pro wrestlers just learn what I learned because like I semi-retired and I came back and I was like 30 pounds lighter and everybody was like, what the heck did Taylor do? Like he left heavier and now he's much lighter. So what did you do? But like, I don't think, just my personal opinion, like I don't think nutrition in the world I don't think the wrestling industry has faced or realized the importance of nutrition on that level, because we think of like pro athletes, we think of the NFL, NBA, MLB.
You would think wrestling would with like weight cuts though,
right? With weight cuts and having to look good on camera or whatever. Like I literally just had a conversation with a wrestler that had to drop 8 pounds in a week. And he was like, how do I do it? And I was like, well, you're lucky I know how. But there's a lot of people out there struggling in the athletic field that have no idea what they're doing. And I don't even think that they've noticed the value yet. So that's just freaking cool that you get to work in that type of demo that you're passionate about. And hopefully maybe one day I get to do the same. So who knows? But
no, it's definitely, the opportunity is great. And like I've always felt like nutrition is usually like, I'm not gonna say it's that last missing piece for a lot of people, but it's a piece of the puzzle that can really help people, take their game to the next level. And obviously for regular folk, take their lives to the next level, because like you and I both know that if you can get your nutrition in check, you can get your training in check, everything else sort of like falls into place, right? It's quite remarkable what good nutrition, hydration, recovery, it's amazing what all of that does to you, not only just how you feel on a day-to-day basis, but just how you like go about your life. You have more confidence, obviously you have more energy, you have more motivation to do it. And like, but everybody talks about motivation. Like you posed that question in the group, and the two things that people were talking about was consistency and patience, right?
yeah.
So those kind of go hand in hand, right? You have to have consistency and you have to have patience. And I think this would hit home. This hits home for parents, because you almost have to treat yourself as if you would treat your child, right? So if you're if you make a mistake, like you kind of fall off your plan, right? Over the weekend, right? You go out, you have a whole pizza to yourself or whatever, and a few beers.
I would.
and then you're just like, oh my God, like I'm done. Like I tried, I failed again, and it's over. That's just like if your kid got an F on his math test, you don't tell your kid like, all right, you might as well just pack it in for the rest of the year.
Right.
Like you don't do that. You have to just like, you have to learn from the mistake, and then you just get up, get right back on track, and you keep studying, right? You keep going. Like you have to find, and that's where like you have to learn how to fail, right? So when you talk about consistency and being patient, that's, those are two things that are not, they're not the easiest thing to do. But if it was easy, would it be really worth it, right? If everybody could just lose the weight they wanted to in a week, would it really be worth it? Probably not, because then the following week they would just do whatever they got them back to where they are right now, or like where they were before they lost weight, and it would just like be this endless cycle, right? So yeah, consistency is not easy to find, because a lot of the things that people do are just simply, they're not sustainable, right?
Right.
A lot of methods that people try, and I'm sure you're a big preacher of sustainability, right?
Right. And man, we could go down 17 avenues about this, but I think you would agree that, especially for me personally, if I have, let's just say, 20 consultation calls in a week, I guarantee you 15, if not more, of those, if I ask those individuals, what's your biggest problem, it will always dive back into lack of motivation, lack of accountability, lack of consistency. I join something and I fall off. And I've always been, and I'm fully transparent and blunt with people after almost 11 years of doing this. Like I've sort of, like, not that I've stopped caring, but I'm a little bit looser with my mouth.
Yeah, you call people out on their bullshit.
Yeah, like
right?
Eventually at some point you're just
not,
tired of the BS. And you're like,
well, that's what people need though. People need that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what people need.
And like, this is where I get really blunt with people, bro, is I get asked all the time, they're like, oh, how do you wake up early? How do you do 5 a.m. workouts? How do you work out multiple times a week? How do you stay consistent with your meal plan? Like, how does Coach Taz does it? He's like such a superhuman. And I'm like, guys, let's just break this down to first grade level here. Are you motivated to mow the lawn? Probably not. Are you motivated to pay your bills? Probably not. Are you motivated to wash the dishes and do the laundry? Probably not. Are you motivated to change your kid's dirty diaper? Probably not. But why do you do them? Because it's going to improve the overall quality of your life, your child's life, or your loved one's life. We have to be willing to do crap that we don't want to do to improve the quality of our life, whether that be financially, spiritually, health, mindset, whatever. So like, that's where I get really blunt with people. But like, what's your opinion on that? If somebody were to come to you and say, my biggest problem is accountability, consistency, like, what do you tell them?
That's a great question. And being new to this whole sort of thing, that's like something that's not an easy thing to like to tell them, like, okay, you lack motivation, you lack accountability, it's X, right? This is exactly what you need to do. For people who are not motivated, right, it usually comes down to other things that may have happened in their life, or other things going on in their life. But what you have to understand, and what a lot of people who may, like you and I, like, we may seem like we're motivated all the time. We're not. Like, we're not always motivated, but we know that if we continue to do the things that we know are necessary, that we will, become more successful, or we will learn, ways to become successful. So, motivation will come, motivation will go. If you're always relying on motivation, you will probably never, ever get to where you want to be, because nobody is motivated the entire time. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who just, that's who they are, right? They've had something happen to them where they are motivated from the second they wake up to the second they go to bed. There's some people who are actually, I believe, who are actually like that. But, when we're talking about the majority of people, that's simply not the case. And it's just like you said, we do these things not necessarily because we enjoy them, although I do enjoy, working out. Some people absolutely hate it, right? Some people absolutely despise it. Some people can't stand the fact that they're going to have to eat nutritious foods, right? They're like, I want to be healthy, but I don't want to eat, like, let's just say spinach. I don't want to eat meat. I don't want to eat chicken all day. It's like, well, you don't have to eat chicken all day, but you do have to eat more real foods. You do understand, like, our bodies do not want this crap in them. So why do you think you feel like crap when you eat like crap, right? And so if I was going to tell somebody, like, yes, I really struggle with, finding the motivation, and I can't stay on anything, I would just seriously, tell them, like, yes, if you're going to rely on motivation, you're probably never going to get anywhere. And it's very hard to be open and say that to somebody. But it's the truth, right? It's not something that's always going to be there. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not easy to find, but it's easy to stay motivated when you know that the things you are doing are moving you towards an outcome that you want, right? So, about, like, the pain that we're in right now and the possibility we can get to, right? If the pain is greater, if the pain it takes to get to where you need to be is less than the pain that you're in right now, then you got to go through that pain to get change, right? And it's oftentimes people won't go through that change until that pain becomes less than the pain they're in right now. I hope that made sense to people.
Yeah. And that's been a quote, man, that has always been, like, burned into my brain. And I remember talking about motivational people. The Rock, dear Lord, he's on a different level, or at least he appears to be. We don't know what happens behind the scenes, but, like, he did a public discussion with the LA Lakers, and people were asking him, how does he stay so motivated all the time? And he said, like, when
you're hitting seven figures for a role.
Right. Especially when you're hitting seven figures. I don't know about you, but if I was making 7 figures, 8 figures a year, my foot would probably, realistically, just to be transparent, my foot would probably come off the gas. Like, just saying. But he was talking about, because one of the Lakers asked him, like, hey, how do you stay so motivated? And he went back and he was fully transparent. And this is where I respect him for it. He was like, I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but this is what works for me. And every single morning I wake up and I act like my back is against the freaking wall and I have no choice but to move forward. And he talks about, like, this time in his life where he had only $7 in his pocket and he didn't know what he was going to do for a career. He got cut from the Canadian football.
CFL, baby.
Yep. And he was living in his mom's basement or whatever. And he was like, I'm broke. Like, I'm living in my mom's basement and I have no, like, career. Like, what do I do? And that's been his driving factor. So that goes back to me. Like, I go through the pain points that I went through as a child, thinking about how I grew up with my parents. And whenever I'm sitting on the couch, and it happened this week, dude, it literally happened this week. I'm not motivated all the time, but I was sitting on the couch this week, like, I just got done working, like, from 5 a.m. to have my first client at 5 a.m., stopped at like 6 p.m. So whatever, that's 13 hours of work nonstop. I barely ate, and I'm, like, shoveling down food. And I had an option, and just out of instinct, bro, I went to the couch, started scrolling through YouTube, just binge watching videos. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I know my trainer's asking me to go do a workout. I have to check in with him. He's wondering what the hell is going on and why he hasn't heard from me. I have two options right now. I can sit here and reward my instant gratification and binge watch Hulu and YouTube or whatever, but then I know I'm going to feel guilty about it later. So I went back and I started asking myself, I was like, remember all that pain that you went through as a child? Imagine how much better you'll be being physically fit, and the message that this sends to your wife and your daughter, and you're leading by example. So guess what? I got my happy ass up, went to the freaking gym and did a freaking leg day workout. And you know what? It was like 8 o'clock at night when I got done, but bro, I felt 10 times better. I didn't have that guilt going on. Like, I felt like I moved the needle forward. So it's like, I don't know if I have a good answer for anybody on how I stay motivated, other than I think about where I could have been compared to who I am now. And I know for certain I never want to go back to that person I was. So I'm willing to delay that instant gratification of binge watching YouTube and Hulu and get my butt up and go to the gym. So
yeah, sometimes we just need a reminder, right? Just a reminder, like you said, like The Rock, he would always think about, now I hope that nobody has to, get down to a point where they're pretty much, homeless and only have $7 in their pockets, right?
yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes we just need to, I guess we just need a reminder of like where, I guess how bad it could be if you don't do these things. Like, where will you be if you don't do these things? And I think I made a post on it the other day. It was just saying, like, let's stop thinking in the days and the weeks, right? Let's stop like looking ahead, like, hey, where will I be next week, right? Where will I be tomorrow? Let's start thinking like, where will I be in 3 months? If I did these things, every single week, I would move more throughout the day. I ate an appropriate amount of food depending on, my goals. I focused on getting better sleep. What would that look like if I did that, every day, or at least the majority of the time, in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, and start thinking in those terms, and set up little wins along the way, right? Like if you're somebody who's trying to lose 100 pounds, try to like start with 5 pounds. Don't look at it as this huge goal. Start with 5 pounds. And when you lose that 5 pounds, celebrate it. Maybe don't celebrate it with the, going off the deep end, so to speak, and having, an entire tub of ice cream, but celebrate it. Be happy with what you're doing, because what you're doing, is working, right? As long as you're doing it in a way where you're not, completely restricting yourself, doing an absurd amount of work, right? You're kind of over stressing your body and then under recovering as well, because that any like losing weight is not an issue for it is for some people, but losing weight is not an issue. It's keeping it off that is the issue,
Right.
There's a reason why 95% of diets fail.
Yep.
Is just for that reason alone, is sustainability. And like people like you and I, we're in the business of going against the grain, so to speak, right? We're trying to teach people like, hey, no, this is what you have to do before you can lose weight. You have to get your body back to a point where it actually, wants to lose weight, or you're ready to lose weight, and you're ready to do it in a way that's going to allow you to still have energy, to still sleep well, to still, not be moody. Because like I'll tell you this. So before, like, this was 2 years ago, 2 years ago now, maybe, yeah, not this summer. No, it was like last summer actually. So I didn't really know much about nutrition. I knew that, like, okay, because I always ate a significant amount of food. And I knew that, like, if I restrict my calories, I limited my carbohydrates, that I would lose weight, right? I didn't know why, but by the end of the summer, like, I was down below 2,000 calories. And like, I'm 6'2", like 220 pounds, eating 1,800 calories, 100 grams of carbs a day. And like, I felt like garbage. I looked great.
Holy crap.
Dude, I looked phenomenal, right? But I was like, talk to my wife. I was extremely moody. I did not sleep well. My sex drive was in the shitter. Everything else, like, my energy was terrible. Like, my workouts were they were brutal. Like, every rep was just so hard. And this past summer, like, knowing what I know now, I'm like, I'm not putting myself through that. Like, why knowing what I know now, why would I do that? Like, I'm going to take the necessary time. Like, if I do want to look that good ever again, then I'll do it the right way, right? I'll do it the way where I am not, like, I'm still sleeping well, still have a decent amount of energy. Because anytime you go into, a diet, right, your energy is going to drop a little bit. You're going to be hungry. Those are just natural things, just because you're putting less energy in your body, right? But I'll never ever do that again. And that just goes back to, like, the sustainability thing. I gained all that weight back.
Yep.
In a very, very short amount of time. And every time, what people fail to understand is every single time you do that, you are making it harder and harder and harder to diet the next time. So the quicker we can snap people out of that cycle, the better. And that's where, like, you know, we're on a 1 billion person mission, right? Impact over everything. And we're more than on the way to doing that. So
Right. And I literally, right before my last training, I had a consultation with somebody else that was thinking about coming on board. And he was running marathons, triathlons, like super endurance athlete, trying to compete at the highest level in his sport. And he came to me and he was like, my doctor is telling me my cholesterol is out of control, my weight's plateaued, I've actually gained weight, but yet I'm super active. Food quality is an issue because I'm on a whole food diet. I don't understand why I'm gaining weight, and I don't understand how cholesterol is getting out of control. Like, what do I do? And I'm saying, well, do you know how much you're eating? No. I'm like, you might want to start there.
how low is it?
Dude, and he straight up, he told me, he was like, he's running, I don't even remember. I don't even want to make something up. He's running 10 plus hours a week or something. Like, dude doesn't have any problem training. He goes on these 2 to 4 hour long runs. Like, he's an elite endurance athlete. And I asked him, I was like, sir, how many calories do you burn during these sessions, do you think? And he's like, well over 1,000, well over 2,000.
Oh, easy.
Like,
Yeah.
well, run me through your day. What are you eating? And, he's having like a protein shake in the morning with some granola, chicken salad for lunch, some random leftover dinner. I'm like, dude, like, you're killing your metabolism. You're killing yourself.
Yeah. And then everything else kind of goes out of whack too. Right.
So people, like, we've seen increases from studies, and this is where I talk about people, and this is why I extended my education to go more into hormones and thyroids, because we're seeing a surge right now of, as the obesity epidemic and the overweight epidemic continues to go well over 60, almost 70%, we're seeing simultaneously an increase in autoimmune disease. And I don't know about you, I ran the numbers a couple months ago. Every 10 clients we onboard in our company, 8 of them come with some sort of metabolic issues from years of chronic dieting and under eating. So that is telling me, at least in my general area, that there's not an overeating issue, there's an under eating issue. And people, due to chronic dieting and the things that media tells them, this is leading to a lot of physiological damages and eventually autoimmune diseases. So there's a relationship there, and people got to start paying attention.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to think, like, not even, let's say 50 years, I don't have the exact numbers or studies or whatever, but like, autoimmune diseases haven't been around. Like, all of these different versions of of them have not been around for that long. Like, humans did not have autoimmune diseases. They didn't have intolerances like we do now, right? And a lot of that comes down to our diet and our lifestyle. And it's just how we are kind of as a society these days. And there's almost like, just to an extent, it's not some people's faults, just because of the environment they've been raised in, and the kind of how we've been brainwashed, essentially, for the lack of a better term, right? Because a lot of people don't even know what food really is, right? Like, I've used this example before, where maybe it's not a lack of knowledge about what's good versus what's bad, even though there's no technically good or bad foods. There's nutritional foods, and there's, like, food that don't have a lot of nutrition, right? But if I had a Big Mac in one hand, and if I had a salad in the other, like a bowl of salad, not in my hand, but and I asked you which one's healthier, I would say maybe like 99 out of 100 people would say the salad, right? But over 50 of those people are still going to eat the Big Mac.
Yeah.
Now, that has nothing to do with a lack of knowledge, right? That is 100% a mindset issue. So how do we fix that? That's the $1 million question. That's a question that it's not easy to do. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight to have that kind of shift from, hey, this like, I can't control my thoughts. Like, this is what my body wants. It's like, actually, no, it really wants the salad. You're just going to pick the Big Mac because it's satisfied. It gives you that, that dopamine rush. It allows you to, get that feeling, right? You know what feeling I'm talking about.
Yep.
And when we have sweets, like, a lot of people like candy, right? People like, maybe not everybody has a sweet tooth, but everybody likes junk food to an extent, and it's designed to be very satiating. No, not satiating, but very palatable. Very
Right.
palatable. Companies spend millions of dollars researching. Okay, a Dorito tastes like this. It has the texture of this. It tastes great. Okay, and that sound you make when you bite into it, it's the perfect sound. Like, all right, this is the perfect. All right, we're going to release this new flavor. It's perfect, right? That's what companies literally do. So it's hard to really blame some people sometimes. So that's where you have to shift the mindset, right? And mindset training. And that's why working with a one-on-one coach and being inside of their community is so beneficial, because yes, you're getting the one-on-one attention, but you're also doing it with other people who are in the exact same situation as you, and you're all kind of feeding off each other. You're learning from each other. You're learning from the coach. The coach is helping you in, I would hope an appropriate way, because there are bad coaches out there, just like there are bad everybody. There's bad apples wherever, in every tree, so to speak, right? So it's just it's taking it's shifting your perspective from what you believed in the past to something that is, entirely new. Like, I almost have to tell people when they start working with me, I'm like, take whatever you were taught before and just throw it out the window, please.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be a lot of things that I tell you where you're like, that's interesting. I was told that I shouldn't eat carbohydrates. I was told that I shouldn't eat after 7 p.m. I was told this. And I was like, well, did they ever tell you why? Like, no, or maybe they did, but like, it never made sense. It doesn't make sense, right? If you're like, a big thing, obviously right now is intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting is a craze. Intermittent fasting is just not eating. That's all it is. Like, it's just not eating throughout a certain window of time, right? So yeah, it's hard to really blame people for where they are right now.
Right.
But at the same time, being neglecting the things that we know we should do is not an excuse either.
Right. And I think just from speaking with the people that I have this past week, I think I'll be very, very confident in saying this publicly in a room with 10 million people. The biggest thing that people just want out of life is they want balance, and they want that flexibility within their diet to be able to, they understand that eating a salad or a chicken salad or Whole Foods is healthier than eating the Big Mac, but they just want to know that they can still achieve results if one day they do choose to eat that Big Mac or the candy or whatever. And that's where we come in. We're like, yeah, you can. Let us show you how.
100%.
And just to go back with the whole, because I think this is very, very important. Going back to the consistency, I think a lot of people fall off, honestly, is they try to, like the New Year's resolutioners, they chase this unrealistic level of perfection where, January 1 comes, they have to have the perfect workout routine. They may or may not get a trainer. They have to get the perfect diet, whether it's keto, intermittent fasting, yada, yada, yada. And they have to wake up at a certain time, and they have to write in their gratitude journals or whatever the hell. And they do great on Monday. They do awesome on Tuesday. By Wednesday, they're feeling sore, but they get through it. And by Thursday and definitely Friday, when the weekend comes, you add in the stressors of life and work and everything. Nobody wants to follow their damn diet. Like, no, but then they're sore as hell from the workout because their body hasn't been introduced to that type of stimulus. And they're like, screw this. And they go have that cheat meal, whatever, and they skip the workout. And then they have another fun meal on Saturday. And by that time, their mindset's like, oh, well, I screwed up. I had 2 bad meals and I drank some beer. I'm just going to stop. And one of my favorite books of all time, and I don't know if you read, it's James Clear, Atomic Habits. Whenever somebody,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, when we've ran challenges, bro, I order, like I've done this in the past. I haven't done this with my last challenge, but the last 2 challenges that we've run, I actually purchased the book for everybody. And I tell you, hey, I'm purchasing this. You better freaking read it because there's going to be homework, because there is something in there, and I'll spoil it for everybody, is James Clear talks about this. He says this quote, never miss twice. And basically in a short synopsis, that just means if you have one bad cheat meal, one bad day, one bad workout, whatever, you don't allow yourself to have 2 back-to-back bad meals, skipping workouts, whatever. Because once you get to 2 consecutive bad actions or bad habits that move the needle away from what you're trying to achieve, this mindset, your mindset begins to shift. And it says, well, I've already done it twice. Is it really going to hurt anything if I do it a 3rd time? And then the 3 leads to 4, and the 4 eventually leads to 6 months of bad habits. So he says, if you fall off, it's fine, but don't fall off 2 days in a row. If you have pizza tonight with some beers, it's fine. Wake up tomorrow and get back on your plan. And that's been like a lesson that I've taught all my clients. And it's sort of like lit off the light bulb for them. And they're like, oh, I can have the balance. And I'm like, yeah, you're fine. Like, one bad meal is not going to cause you to gain 20 pounds, no matter what the scale says. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like thinking, I heard this, and this is one of the themes I did in my challenge. I did a hockey analogy, but it's essentially like, in football and basketball, you have 4 quarters, right? Mm-hmm. And now if you lose the first quarter, right, or you don't just give up and you're like, okay, the game's lost. Like, if you lose the first half, you lose the first 2 quarters, you don't give up, right? You still play the second half and you can still win the game, right? Now, chances are if you lose the first 3 quarters, it's gonna be very hard to win the game unless you kept it really close, right? But essentially what that's saying is, split your day up into quarters. Just because you maybe had a bad first quarter doesn't mean you screw up the rest of the game just because you had a bad first quarter, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is too, even if you lose the game, there's another game tomorrow and you can win that game. And guess what? There's another game every single day for the rest of your life. So if you can string together more wins than losses, then you're probably going to be in a lot better position than you were, however long you do it, right?
And that's freaking genius, dude. So yeah, I was taking notes. The quarters idea that you came up with, and then what you said in the beginning of this, going back to, if your child presents you with a bad grade in their class on their report card, like, do you tell them, oh, well, you better give up for the rest of the school year? No, like, as a parent, I would tell my daughter, hey, where can you improve? Why was this class or subject difficult? Let me help you. Let me offer some advice, and we work towards improving it. It all goes back to hard work. Like, at the end of the day, like, delaying that instant gratification, not allowing ourselves to give up. And like, I might go on a tangent, so you can cut me off, but like, it goes back into society approving of this quitting mindset, or it's this okay to be average mindset. No, it's not. Freaking work your butt off. I want my daughter to grow up and being like, my dad taught me to work freaking hard. And because of that, I'm better financially, I'm better spiritually, I'm pursuing a career that I love. My relationship and my marriage is good. Like, I don't want my daughter or my wife or any of my other loved ones to cave into instant gratifications because it's easy. Like, no.
Your kids will follow they'll follow what you do more than what you tell them to do.
Right.
Right. So that's why it's obviously great to set a good example for them. Everybody knows that, right? But actually doing it. So like kind of shifting gears a little bit is heading into the we were talking about this before we started recording, is that people need to take care of themselves so that they can be a better person, so then they can better take care of other people, right? Because you can't tell me that if you had more energy, if you were in better moods, like you woke up and you weren't exhausted, you didn't need a whole pot of coffee to get going, right? Don't you think that you would be a better parent for your children, right? You would have more energy to play with them. You'd be able to keep up with them, that's like when you talk about things that come up in consultations, keeping up with your kids is a huge thing, especially for new parents, right? As soon as the kid starts walking, as soon as they start running, they're very, very, they're very, very quick, right? And they have tons of energy. So you want to be able to keep up with them. You may not, we won't even be able to keep up with them all day, but if you can keep up with them for at least a few hours, then you can be like, okay, mommy's tired, daddy's tired, like leave me alone.
That's where me and my wife do the tag out, like tag in, tag out. You're up. I need to sit down.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
But even as health professionals, bro, like we need to sit down every once in a while.
So many parents just put themselves on the back burner, and they not ruin themselves like in terms of health, but they do a lot of damage. So then when they actually do get to a point where they're like, oh my God, like I need to do something about it, they are very far down the road, right? And it's going to take some time to reverse that, right? It took you 10, 15, 20 years to get to where you are right now.
Right. Don't
expect to get out of it in 6 weeks. Don't expect to get out of it in 6 months, right? It's those expectations, and it's seeing those expectations. Other people might be able to do that, right? They might be able to do that. Keyword might, but most people cannot do that. And it's going to take time to get you to where you actually want to be. And for people to actually accept that is very hard. But once you can actually accept those terms and be like, hey, you know what? I've done this to myself, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to, get out of it. So Coach Taz, tell me what to do.
Yeah. Eat more, damn it. So good deal, man. Good talk. So I honestly, I want to respect your time because we're over the 45-minute mark already. I know that you have an obligation to get to, but this was
fun.
Even though we planned for a Q&A and I had questions ready that clients and our group members were asking me, I had a collection of like 13 different questions to ask you. That just means we need to have a part 2, because I think it's so important, and I don't regret having this conversation, because we need to have this serious conversation to parents, and even if you're not a parent, about motivation, accountability, consistency, why we fall off, delaying instant gratification, because I'm a firm believer in, unless your mindset is in a position to move the needle forward and be able to accept that delayed gratification and to just be willing to walk through the swamp to get to the treasure on the other side, it's going to be very difficult for you to change your physical health or even your physiological health. So this was a truly valuable conversation that I really hope people repeat and replay, because it's a conversation that you and I both have with our clients on a weekly basis, to the point where sometimes it feels like we're broken records and we're constantly having the same conversations. But we need to have these serious, tough love conversations with people to let them know, like you said, you didn't get here where you are today in the last 5, 10, 15 years. it was little decisions that you made that compounded over time, just like our investments. That's how you got to where you are today. So it's going to take time. So when people hire a coach or they look for the latest diet or workout plan, whatever it is to achieve the results, they've got to understand the importance of growing their mindset and doing personal development. So thank you for having this conversation. And man, I cannot wait until we do a part 2. And hopefully people won't be mad at us that we didn't answer their questions.
No. Thanks for having me. People need to think about this. People need to be reminded more often than they need to be taught. Right. So yeah, no, I really look forward to it. Right. Thanks again for having me on.
So real quick, how can people find you? What are some things coming out that you want people to know about?
On Instagram, it's at Simply Fit Matt. On Facebook, it's Matt Kadolf. So Kadolph. You can send me a message on there. Feel free to add me if you'd like as well. We can have a chat. You can ask me about anything and everything. I respond to all my messages. So those kind of the 2 things. In terms of what's next for me, I'm really focusing on this new facility that we got. The training business that I run is called Precision Hockey Training. So that's going to be something that I'm really focusing on, as well as my own nutrition coaching business. So it's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Good deal. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again. And I look forward to, we got to get something in the books for a round 2. So thank you again, brother.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Bye.